Okay, the final step. We've now denoised our exrs out of Maya, and we're going to do the final composite in After Effects and to render this to a video sequence. So if you've never, I'm going to do this as if you've never used After Effects before. So if you have, you can skip to the different parts of the video. If it's your first time using After Effects on your own computer, or if you're using it on a different computer like one of the studio ones, first thing I want you to do is go to File, Project Settings, and we're just going to check that it's in the correct color space. So we're going to go to the Color tab, and then we're going to select sRGB and hit OK. And then here is the project area, which lists all the things that you have in your project, so a bit like the outliner in Maya. This is where we will view the results, and then this is our timeline, and we use a layered system like Photoshop. So I'm going to right click in the project area and go to Import File, and I'm going to locate my denoised first frame. Now obviously if you haven't denoised yours, you would just select this one, and also if you're planning to denoise it, you can still do this step by selecting this one and doing the same color correction, and then you would just swap out the layer at the end. So select my first frame, make sure that Open EXR Sequence is checked, and hit Import. I'm going to right click and choose Interpret Footage Main, and I just want to tell After Effects to assume a frame rate of 25 frames per second, and hit OK. Next step, I need to create a composition, which is what After Effects uses. So I'm going to drag this onto this little button here to create a new composition, and that will, if I go to composition settings, create a composition with the settings that I have used for my file. So it was rendered in HD, and I set the frame rate to 25. Now it's rendered with an alpha, so I have this transparent background. So what I first need to do is go to Layer, New, Solid. Okay, and then I can create a solid here, and I can create it any color that I want, but I'm just going to stick with pure black and hit OK. Just like in Photoshop or any other layered software, layers above are seen and hide the ones below. So we're just going to drag the black solid underneath, and there we have our render over the top. Now as I'm dragging, you can see that the quality is dropping. If I were to hit play over here in the preview, After Effects will play through at a slow rate, but then once it's loaded it into the RAM, it will play it at full speed, and we can also drag through it as well. We're going to import our ambient occlusion path next. So I'm going to go to right click, Import File, and if I go back to the Images folder and into the AO and select the first frame, I just want to check that Open EXR Sequence is selected again, and I'm going to hit Import. So this is the ambient occlusion path. If I drag this into the composition, we can see this is what we had rendered out. One thing that I forgot to do, as you can see, this is a different length. So let's just delete that. I forgot to right click, Interpret Footage Main, and set it to 25 frames per second. So that's what happened there. So I've done that with my ambient occlusion path, and now if I drag it back down, you can see that it aligns exactly with the length of the beauty path. So if you I'll just turn this off. If you can't see the blending modes here, what I want you to do is right click on this area here where it says source name, and go to columns and turn on modes. The mode here is the blending mode, and so on the ambient occlusion, which is this one here, we can click the little drop down and choose multiply. So if I just zoom in, I'll show you what the effect of the ambient occlusion is. So if I turn my layer off and on, you can see, particularly kind of around here, that that's adding some contact shadowing. Now if you feel like the amount of contact shadow that it's adding is too much, then with the layer selected you can hit T for transparency, and the opacity currently is set to 100, so you can actually drag that down and lower the amount of ambient occlusion. You can kind of see it happening in that corner there. So I probably set mine to about 75. Now you might be happy with the colour of your render, but if you do want to make any tweaks, then what you can do is select the beauty layer, and then if you go to Effect, Colour Correction, you've got all sorts of different options that you can use. So again, if you've used Photoshop, most of them work the same, and so you will already have an idea of what they can do. You have some things like Lumetri Color, which is, you know, kind of some in-depth grading. I'm not going to go into that today. I'm just going to go to Color Correction and add a Levels. So when you add an effect to a layer, it then shows up in the effects control. If you can't see that, you can go to Window, Effect Control, and turn that on. And then you can layer again your effects, so you can layer effects on top of each other. But for this one, I'm just adding a Levels, and if I can, you know, brighten my scene up slightly, and I can turn this on and off to check what the effect is and whether I like that effect or not. I'm probably going to brighten it slightly, but not too much, and maybe even a little bit less than that. So yeah, that's how you import both of your EXR sequences, composite them on top of one another in the layers, and add some simple colour correction. The next step will be to actually export this. So I'm going to use Media Encoder. So before you do this part of it, I want you to make sure that you have installed Adobe Media Encoder. And I'm just going to save the scene before we lose it. I'm going to save it into my Maya project. I'm going to put it in Assets, Save. So I'm going to go to Composition, Add to Media Encoder Queue, and that's going to open, and After Effects is going to send this file to the queue. Okay, was opening on the wrong screen. So here is the composition that we were working in, and it's been sent, and we have a drop down of lots of different settings that we can use. I'm going to leave it on H.264, and then again we have lots of settings here that we can use, and the Vimeo 1080p is a good one to use for your assignment, so please do that. And then if we click here, we can save. I'm going to put it into the images folder inside here and call it rendering demo v5 video export, and save. Okay, and then I just hit the little play button, and Media Encoder is going to export the composition into a video file. It shouldn't take too long because we've not done a lot of complex work inside After Effects. And then once it's done that, you have a video file which you will submit for your assignment.